got the pearls in here.
Hi everyone, we're just gonna wait a few minutes. We're like a minute or two early, so we'll just kind of hang out here for a second. Give people some time to join, hopefully.
Where are the numbers on there?
Hopefully we get some family to jump in. Looks like one viewer so far.
What was that?
I don't know, it doesn't say. One viewer. We're just gonna wait a minute to start, give people some time to jump on. We're hoping for some family interaction or friend interaction, asking us some questions and kind of about the work that we're doing. So we'll just kind of hang out here for a minute. Hello.
Hello.
That's Mariah. I was talking to her early, and I said if I see you popping up, I'm gonna say hello. So that's why she typed that
Yeah, I
hello.
see it now.
Well, you got it from both of us. Hello. Hello.
Kids actually giving you a minute? Or are they still driving you nuts?
Okay, so we should get started, huh?
Okay.
So I'll start.
Okay.
Because you started.
Okay.
Okay, so wasiyaya nishkwandemkwe and nishkwas.
Oh, Nimki Kwe and Dijnakas, Bojwekudan and Dojiba, Magisi Dadam.
Ani Bojo and Dinaway Maganadok, Wapske Beneshkwe and Dijnakas. So we are joining you all live today, hoping that we can get some feedback and comments from people. We have our mom, my mom, Penny's aunt. She joined us today. She's been on this crazy journey with us. So yeah, it'll be an interesting night. I don't know if we want to have mom kind of share about the ancestry stuff.
Yeah,
How we
go.
merged it. So mom, you want to
You
share
got
a
it,
little
Mom?
bit about how you started the ancestry work that Penny kind of took off from?
Okay, I remember when I was in high school watching the movie Roots. And I was so impressed by the show that I start asking questions and start doing a family tree. And back then we didn't have computer access or cameras that took pictures, so I would find out the names of the capitals and I'd be calling the different states, so like in Michigan to get birth records, death records, baptism records, anything they had available, and I would have to send cash or a check, money order actually, to these places in order to get these copies made. And so I scanned everything that I had gotten and compiled a folder on everyone. Old photos, marriage licenses, everything. Took quite a few years, and then when Don and I got together, his brother heard about me doing this family tree with all these books and papers, and he set us up with a big computer and a program called the Family Tree Maker to where I could put all the files together. So in all this time, that was the old books that I used,
Hi, Kate.
where everything was put together, and it's that thick, but that's one of many.
Yep. Oh.
And this Penny got the modern day version of everything on her computer, and she took my old computer and compiled everything in there and has been able to take it further than what I had. So I had asked Christine to take over the family tree when my time comes. And between these two getting together and then hearing some of the stories, this all took off.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
finding out that I still have two uncles who are still alive on my father's side, and reconnecting with my uncle has led them this quest about finding all these old graves and old records on the boarding schools, because we're aware that both sides of my family, my mom and her siblings and my father and his siblings, all attended these boarding schools. So,
So you know what I found like really what I appreciate the most about what you did
Hey,
is
cousin
that
Jody.
we're struggling to get the information now, and we're spending a lot of time in doing that, and a lot of the stuff is digital. We just have to know where to
Yeah.
look for it, and you didn't have
I
that
didn't have
convenience.
that, no.
So to have that book as a starting point was huge for us in getting started. But I really appreciate, you know, all the hard work and stuff that you put into it
Mhm.
um, in getting us started, because I can't imagine just starting from scratch and not knowing, you know, any of that stuff. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so Ancestry .com, that's what we're using right now to upload everything. Penny pays for the subscription for that. And so what we're doing is merging all the work that mom did, because they're like old CDs, that family tree maker. And it's not up to date anymore or compatible with what we're doing on Ancestry. And so it's taking all the copies of all the records that mom has and transferring them over to Ancestry, so we have them all in one place. Then we can share them with other family members looking for these records too, that's one of the goals that we're doing. So
Yeah.
I want to explain too, I don't know that we went too much into details. So we're saying we're a nonprofit, which we plan to be. Right now we're doing all of this work just out of our own pocket. We're not really at that place right now where either one of us have the time to really delve into applying for grants that's going to give us the time to really do all this work and help other family and stuff. So we've kind of just been going on a case to case basis. We've had a few family members that reach out to us and be like, oh, can you look up so and so, or what year was grandpa born? I'm looking for more information about this. And so we've been helping family along the way. Again, we're hoping to eventually establish our nonprofit and make this accessible to all people in our family, within our tribe, and then other communities as well. We want to stay a nonprofit because we don't want money to be a barrier for anyone looking for information, whether it be Ancestry, whether it be the boarding school records. Like, we're taking the time and our money to get those records and get down to Chicago and do all that work. We want to make sure that we're making this accessible to everybody, and it's not going to cost them anything to get that.
Yeah, because the bottom line is really what we're looking for is to reestablish our culture, who we are as people. So money is a big problem for a lot of people in getting that information. So if they're asking about family members, yeah, we're going to give it to them, and we're going to find a way to do it, because I think that knowledge is power, and it allows them to really understand, you know, where everybody was. I mean, when you learned where grandma was, it's like, wow, we didn't learn that through, you know, through her entire life until the day she died. You know,
Yeah.
that there was something that she needed to say, or, you know, things like that, or why we weren't able to connect with our culture, and why we can't speak the language, you know, the way that we want to, or, you know, any of that stuff. So I think that is the bottom line. But to help everybody in between, you know, so if you're asking for, you know, information on your family, that it happens to be our family, we'll give it to you. We'll give you whatever it is that you need.
Hey, cuz Christine just joined us.
So yeah, most definitely we will share that information, you know, especially with the boarding school stuff too, because that is, I think that, I don't even know how to say it. Like, if we kick that issue and solve, you know, like where our family was,
Yeah, yeah.
and if we can get record on it, it answers a lot of questions, I think. And it just brings us closer home, I think.
Yeah. So Kate just asked, do we use Find a Grave app to find where our family is buried? Yeah, that's one of the apps within Ancestry that we do search for. The problem with that is a lot of the times that the records aren't accurate. So like our Grandpa Philip says on Find a Grave says he's in, we know he's in St. Agnes, but
Yeah.
where did they say he was? It wasn't Manistee. It was somewhere else. Oh,
Yeah.
Epiphet. It said Epiphet. And we're like, well, obviously he's not there, right? And then there's so many people that have same names too. We have to make sure that it's the right person at the right time. We've even found records that they were born in the same year, but the death dates were different. And so then we're confirming with family, and we're searching census records and all of that. So that's been a struggle. Oh, I see Kaluuya's on.
So I think too, you know, the other part of it is that, so it's all, I forget the name of what it's called, but anyway, it's user generated. Find a Grave is user generated. So anybody that signs up for it, it can go out there, find a grave, or a stone, and mark it with a picture, in Find a Grave, and they can put the wrong location
Yeah.
or, whatever. So maybe they were at a previous cemetery, 2 days ago, and that one's in their head, and then they end up entering this one. So some of those challenges, plus the one that we were looking for when they moved them,
Yeah.
the cemetery
That's
moved
the
them.
other struggle too.
Yeah.
So they'll say they're here and then we go and it's like, there's a town there. So it's like, where did they get moved to, right? And some of those records aren't even accurate about where they got moved to, and that's the other struggle. I think you can put in edits. Yeah. So when we are finding the accurate ones, we are putting in the edits. Another big thing that we're doing is cleaning up graves. And so there's that cemetery we were talking about with the moose story, right? On Gem Island. A lot of the headstones are tipped over. Some of them don't have markers, or there was a cross there. You can tell where it was, but sometimes the markers aren't even there. I know in St. Ignace, we don't have our Grandma Josephine's name on anything. It's just the cross. And so eventually, if we get our nonprofit up and running, that's one of the big things we want to be able to fund, is getting proper headstones, getting the names on there, so when family are coming, they can pay their respects and know where our family is and have those accurate records.
Yeah, and it's not just for our family
Right.
either when we say that. So that's why we're not doing the nonprofit really right now. That's part of the reason why, because we're not, gonna do all that just for our family. No, we're using our research and our family as learning of what it is that we can provide to other families, for sure. So, but yeah, they do need to be named, especially the kids that are buried at the boarding school cemeteries. That's disheartening. So, but that's another thing. They need to be brought back home and things like that. So how can we be part of that? But that is kind of down the road.
Yeah, and that's one thing Uncle Francis said too with his last interview that he gave, was that he watched one of his friends die. He didn't realize that what was happening at the time, but he knows he's buried there somewhere. And there's no graves that are marked on those grounds. We were there and we searched, and when we asked for them, they're like, oh, they're up the hill. I know we mentioned this in our first or second live too, but they're not marked. And we know dozens and dozens of children died there. And so where are they? Are they buried under the concrete road? I mean, it's a huge touristy town now, and we don't know. And that's the sad part of it all. He wants to make sure these
And
kids
they
are brought
also
home.
said there were just a few bones
Right.
that they found, a few. But yet the guy at the cemetery that was keeping it said there was a big hole and they threw all the bones. They made it sound like there's a lot
Yeah, like it was a mass grave
into
or
a
something.
hole. And so,
Yeah.
and there was no cross.
But I mean, how would any of you feel, right? You know where your families are buried. What if they just decided, oh, we want a big condominium now and it's fine. We'll relocate them for you, right? Would you be okay with that? These are babies that were buried there and moved, and it's so disgusting. Nobody wants their family members moved. They
Yeah.
should stay where they're at, right?
Right.
But
Right.
in these cases, on the boarding school ground, those babies need to go home. They need to be given their proper burial.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's one of our things that we promised our uncle, is we're going to keep searching. We're going to do whatever we can to get the right people in there to get that equipment in and search the grounds. Canada's way ahead of us. Their tribes have stepped in and purchased the equipment themselves and gone in there and started searching, and the U.S. has only begun. And you don't hear that on the news, do you?
No.
That's very, very sad. I got a couple comments
Yeah.
here. That was you guys doing the moose snorting at y'all?
Yes,
What'd you say?
the moose.
The moose.
Yeah.
Every
Our
time we
first
get a
live.
picture too, like Christine had me watch this cartoon, and it was a very great cartoon. Anyway,
Oh, Molly of Denali. Yeah, Grandpa's
Yeah.
Drum. If you guys have not seen Molly of Denali, watch Grandpa's Drum. It will bring you to tears. Like, it's supposed to be a cartoon. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And it is a cartoon, but it talks about indigenous cultures. And Grandpa's Drum, just watch it. I'm not going to tell you anything more about it.
It'll
Just
make you
watch
cry,
Grandpa's
that's
Drum.
for sure.
but
So
it
good.
had a moose on it, so I took a screenshot and I sent it to Christine. I'm like, oh my gosh. I did cry my eyeballs out, but this is super funny. There is a moose in this cartoon.
We see moose all the time now, and we're always going to remember Sugar Island and
Yeah.
trying to have Hobblong over here with her little knee surgeries and trying to run away, and we're hearing that moose in the background. I don't think we ever got to say in that either. So beforehand, right, Penny's like, oh my gosh, this is so perfect. I want to live off the grid. I could totally live on Sugar Island. After the moose incident, how do you feel?
Yeah, no. Not gonna happen. Definitely not gonna happen. Not living with the moose, not living with the mosquitoes.
Oh,
not
gosh.
a chance. The place kind of gives me the heebies. So no, not gonna happen. Anyway, if any family member is out in Sugar Island or next weekend, we will be there. So come out and say hi. Give us a bunch of love because we'll return the favor for sure. And we'll be cleaning up that gravesite in hopes that we do not see the moose.
Let's hope not.
And guess who's driving?
Chris is taking us again.
He's taking
Down
us
Papa
again.
Patch. I don't know if he's going to drive up there
Driving.
again. We'll see. They haven't gotten a lot of rain though, so hopefully we won't
Yeah.
slide around and have any issues getting up there. But
Right.
we just want to make sure that again that other family can get up there and see and get the markers in there. And I guess over time, and when people pass away and stuff, they kind of lose who's responsible for taking care of those sites, and it's heartbreaking. We want to make sure family can go visit and pay their respects. So
Yeah.
make sure the cars are running. Oh yes, we won't be too far away from the car.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. We might bring a cart for.
We'll get a little dolly. We get a little dolly. She can lay across the dolly. And if we get a mouse, we're just like, Mom, lay down. We got this. And just drag her.
We told you we would take care of you and take you with.
Yeah, by the leg. Dragging
No,
me.
we'll get a dolly this time. You can
That's
sit in
what
the
she
dollies.
said. She
Dollies
was
are made for
like,
humans, right? Maybe we could get a cardboard box and put it on there so Mom could sit in the cardboard box. That'd be a
oh,
little
yeah,
more safe,
push
right?
you down the hill.
No, we'll put you in the
No,
cart.
we'll ratchet you right
Yeah. Get some bungee cords, strap her all in there.
there. Right. Oh my gosh.
She'll be fine. It'll be fine. Mariah, it's gonna be a bumpy ride.
No.
It's
No.
better than trying to run. What if you actually saw the moose? You wouldn't be able to run.
If I scream loud enough, you take off.
Yeah, you think so.
After
Okay.
you.
Let me tell you
Yeah.
right now, okay? Anyone who's watching or is going to watch later, do a video of a moose and see the large size of it, okay? And you tell me if that comes up to you. Are you just going to scream and it's just going to run away? I'm not taking the chance. I don't know if any of you are.
I am not either. Forget
Mariah, it'll all be fine.
it. No,
No.
You know what? After that, when I came home, I bought a $50 bottle of bear spray.
Will it work for a moose?
And yes.
Yeah?
And I can put it on my belt loop. Yeah.
But how do you know it'll work on moose?
Because it was proven.
Oh. I
I'll
mean,
show
if
you the
Google
video.
says it, it's got to be true, right?
It is. I learned it on YouTube.
Kate says a plastic sled, just pull her. I mean, we could do that too. Put you in a little sled. There's probably a lot of leaves on the
Okay.
ground. That would probably work too, right?
Yep.
We'll have a backup plan either way.
Yeah, I'm sure that your mom could take us on anyway. So we better stop razzing her.
Oh my gosh, too funny.
Okay, so we wanted to give you just a few examples of things that you can do at home. Also, I just thought of this. For those of you that are or want to add, if you know where the family's buried, and it's not on Find a Grave, go add it. You don't have to have the picture. Just go add it. It'll help us as well as anybody else. So definitely go add it. But this fun book right here is a good one.
Show them all the tabs you have in here.
Yeah.
These are all different family names. You literally have to go page by page. There's not an index in there, but it's the Durant roll. And
So here's an example.
Yeah.
You know, so it lists when they were on the roll, you know.
who was living with them.
Yeah, who was living with them, and the field notes. So the field notes provide more details, kind of like an open discussion. So like kind of like us talking. This guy documented all of that and put it in this book. So this is a really, really good book to have. Another one is this here. So the Ottawa and Chippewa Indians of Michigan. So The years here are 55 or 1855 to 1868, and a lot of these names are in Ojibwa. So, or indigenous names, depending on the tribe, but it tells them. And if they weren't Ottawa or Chippewa Indians, it'll say, it won't list the name, but it'll say spouse or male Ottawa, or not Ottawa, but, Potawatomi or, Saginaw or whatever. So that's pretty cool, if you happen to know the names. And then after is this one, is 1870 to 1909. So it's kind of the same thing, but these books don't have the field notes, and it provides the information. So these are kind of the books that Christine and I have found.
And you'll see a shift in them too. So like the earlier one, there's more of the indigenous names in them. And then the next one, you can see where the boarding school stepped in and then they were given surnames. And that's the hard part with this ancestry work too, is because both sides of our family are indigenous and they had names before they went to boarding schools. Do you remember the names of grandma and her siblings?
They're given names?
Yeah.
I have them written.
Yeah.
Mom was Wapganese. Aunt Lil was Biabnoquay, which translated to someone early rising. Mom was Yellow Flower. My grandfather was Kokojis. He was named after the groundhog. Uncle Merlin was Mondosh. So they all had names. I don't remember what Uncle Sonny's was. I do have it written somewhere, but I have to check it out.
Sometimes the surnames came like after the chief. So like if there was a Chief Joseph, that's maybe where the Joseph name came into it. And then they were given those other first names, the Christian names, when they went into the boarding schools. And so that's why it's cool to have these, because some of the records that we have their original names in them, and we can search either the Durant Row field notes, even one of our relatives, I think there's 2 or 3 that have that Tabishko-Gijik, was their original given name. I think, was it Gilbert? Because when we went to the boarding school and we saw their attendance record, Tabishko-Gijik was written right on there before his given name. So that's really cool to see. I remember
John Joseph.
Yeah, yeah. So you said when grandma went into the boarding school, she was only speaking the native language. That's all she knew. Obviously, that was beaten out of him. We asked Uncle Francis. He doesn't remember learning or knowing the language or people in his family speaking it. So that was already removed from their family. But they came over from Canada too. So I mean, there's a whole lot of reasons why.
Yeah, but Uncle
Even
Francis
before
too
the
was
school.
younger.
He was 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was the second youngest child. So there were already, like Grandpa Jack, he already spent a year in the boarding school. And then, all the other siblings have already spent some time. So they're already coming home with Christian beliefs now, and not so much, the culture. So I can only imagine that, that was part of it. Right?
Right.
So, we were looking at some boarding school records prior to this this live. We don't like to plan kind of like what we're talking about and stuff. We kind of just go off the cuff. But we were just chatting, and it's like, what, we should probably share. I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
And I think we're at that point, right?
Yeah.
So we wanted to share some of these records. And then we're like, okay, so what family are we going to do?
Because we have a lot. So let's just say when we went to the Chicago archives, before we had gone, we got maybe 10 family groups of families, and we paid for those records $300-400. Was a lot of money. And then that guy was like, come down to the archives, you can scan it all for free. But we were just taking pictures with our phones and then with our tablet once our phone died. What we want to do is work with the Chicago archives and use their equipment, because if we scan it in with their equipment, it now becomes live for everybody and everyone has access to it. So like when they digitized our first records that we paid for, now everyone has records to those. So they can call the Chicago archives and you can get those for free right now. But the ones that we scanned, there was an additional 40 family names or groups of families that we scanned. We didn't digitize those. We just wanted to get there, get as many of them as we can and go. But there's so many more. Like every time we're doing this
Oh,
ancestry
yeah.
thing and we're finding another name and we're looking at the boarding school records or we're looking at the census records or even these books here or the Durant Field Notes, we're finding more names. And I'm like, okay, that's another family member. So we probably, I don't know how many more we have. We have a lot. So basically, I mean, if we could ideally go down to the Chicago archives and digitize all of them,
Mm-hmm.
that would be ideal because now everybody has access to it and you don't have to spend money to get them.
Right.
So we're gonna just go over one of our family members. Are
Yeah.
we going with mom's dad's side?
Yeah.
So
yeah, we
the
will.
Joseph side?
Yeah.
No, McLeod side.
McLeod side,
So
sorry.
we're gonna go on the McLeod
Yeah.
side today.
So, just to give you a little snapshot of the 10 hours that we spent in the archives, it's very much like I don't know. I kind of felt like we were in like an ancient museum, and you had to put on little feather gloves
Yeah.
and you know not touch some things because we
Yeah.
couldn't touch things. And then I got so nervous. I'm like, so Christine and I couldn't even sit at the same table.
No, you had to be at separate tables to make sure that you weren't cross
Yeah.
documents.
And it's not like we could face each other
No.
either. We had to both sit in the same direction. And so I was like, I had such anxiety. So we did take a break, you know, and then we,
Yeah, no food or water. You
Yeah.
couldn't contaminate anything.
right. And if you took a page out if you took a page out of the book, there was a formula or you have to put this big sheet inside of it and then you have to set it to the side and then I'm like, oh my gosh, what are the
Yes.
rules? I don't remember the rules.
And they were there watching us too and,
Yeah.
and helping us. We're like, can't remember the order of this. They'd help you. I mean,
Yeah.
they're really good that way.
They did, but it was super anxious experience. But then Christine and I, like, because we don't always like to follow the rules.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So,
Ask our husbands. I'm sure they'll agree.
so we're like, hey, wait a minute. We only got X amount of time. And Christine's like, oh my gosh, my phone is dying. I'm like, oh, what are we going to do?
I'm like, stall him, talk to him, ask him anything.
So yes, I was it. To talk to this guy who's actually pretty awesome.
He's really
I learned about his family. I learned way more than I needed to learn. And she was like, keep going, keep going. I'm like, oh my God.
I had like 30 pages to scan, and he's like, all right, we got to close up. I'm like, Penny, keep talking. Just keep talking because he's talking. I'm like, I'm flipping, snapping my cameras. My phone died. I'm grabbing her tablet and trying to snap as many as I can because I'm like, we got all this way down here. Like, let's get as much as we possibly can. And she was stalling them. And then I'm like, and as I'm saying, thank you so much, click, 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 click. I'm snapping as many pictures as I possibly can. He let us. He didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, I've never said a 20-minute thank you before that.
she's a good staller.
I had a bunch of BS. That's
Kate,
for sure.
Not Christine. Yeah, not me.
Yeah.
We're rule followers. Ask any of us, right?
Oh my gosh. So yeah, it was quite the treat. We laughed a lot, especially on the way home.
Oh yeah, because then we started reading some of the documents and stuff too. So
Yeah.
So Penny's gonna give you a little taste of some of the work that we're doing. She's gonna read some of it to you. So
Yeah. So not all records are the same. They're all very different. And what's included in most of them is social workers. So the social worker from the county they were in. And then all the family members of that household who was living there, including any family members that stayed back to take care of the children. So they were marking that too. Now, any deaths, things like that, those were listed too. So we actually did correct some of our ancestry based off of this information. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's the connection. I didn't realize that, you know. We had the names right, just not the relationship per se accurate. So I know it's really hard to see, but this is like, I don't know, Christine, if you can hold that up closer. It's the application, and they call it the case record card. And on that is the name of the family. So in this case, it was, so the case record, the maiden name would be Josephine Desjardins, who is our great grandmother. And then the date of the first review, which was 9/25, 1935, and Grandma Josephine died in 1940. So it lists her husband, which is Grandpa Philip, and then the degree of Indian blood. And I don't agree with the degree of Indian blood in a lot of this because I'm sorry, the white people just didn't know. And I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just saying that because they honestly did not know.
Josephine died in 1935. So that's when the social workers stepped in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
she died in 1935. That's why the social worker stepped in, because now our great grandfather was left with 7 kids to try to raise on his own. So that's why they stepped in, like, oh, he can't do this. Definitely not, right? Because he's got to work and.
Yeah. So it also has lists of, what grade they were in, what school they were going to. So this is where we learned, that they went to Harbor Springs, even though the records. So this is very confusing for us, and I'm still like learning it too. Like I get confused easily on it because Mount Pleasant was doing the intake for Harbor Springs. Mount Pleasant was just closing. So even though we thought originally that a lot of our family went to Mount Pleasant, they actually didn't. They went to Harbor Springs, which is why we went to Gaylord to the church to try to find those records, and that's when we got shunned. But yeah, it's very confusing. So they were doing the intake for Holy Childhood or whatever there. So, and then children away from home and other relatives. So they listed that here too. Talked about Grandpa Jack, who he was in relation to the family member or the case file name. So that was listed on here. Any military service, I don't know why that would be relevant, but that's on there. And then each page, this is I don't know if you want to hold that one up. It's a good example because you can read it, but a lot of the records contain that information. So it'll go by date, and then it'll have discussion about the caseworker, their opinions. The state sometimes will be involved in that too, and they'll talk about that. Just giving examples. So this is where we were called like half-breeds and red, and it's seriously disheartening to read some of this stuff because they were very ignorant in their approach and how they dealt with us as human beings at the time. But let's see. So they'll say, here's an example. So they abbreviated a lot. They would say V, which is the social worker's name, but just say V, and then M for male, meaning that would have been my Grandpa Philip, and then W for woman, which was my Grandma Josephine. But let's see.
I'll answer a few questions while you're looking that up.
Yeah.
So, Becky was asking. So, Grandma Josephine died in 1935. Kate's asking, did they come to him and offer the support in school or as a supposed way of helping, or were the kids forcefully taken? So
Both.
it's kind of both. They're in these records that we're reading. It sounds like our grandpa was drinking a lot. Well, I mean, how else are you going to handle the loss of your wife, right? And the fact that you're left with 7 kids, drinking was a common thing, that a coping mechanism, right? I mean, how many people today use that as a coping mechanism, right? And so when they come into the home and they see that, well, he's drunk a lot, they got all these kids they're trying to take care of. Yeah, there's some family, but are they going to be able to take care of all 7 kids? And there's notes in here that say, we can offer this school, or we can put them in foster care, or, in somebody else's home. And so basically they make them feel like they don't have any other choice. So in this record of our family, they weren't like forcibly taken, meaning they weren't ripped out of my grandpa's arms, but it was pretty much like, you don't have another choice. You have to send them to the school.
Yeah.
And then they were all taken except for, all of Grandma and her siblings went to the school.
Yeah. Well, this is Grandpa Jack.
Becky said Dad mentioned he was 10 when she died, so I'm sure the years were a little bit off when they're trying to think back at the time. But her death record was in 1935. She died of pneumonia. Becky was just asking that.
Yeah.
Kate, I'd drink if I had all those kids too. Big families were common. I mean, that's how you carried on the culture, and you all took care of each other. That's just kind of how it was.
Yeah.
Right?
It says in here too that Grandpa Philip, he made 5 cents a week. So he's making 5 cents a week, and he's not getting any help from the county. as far as assistance goes. And they say he's eligible for assistance, but the only assistance that they can provide at this point is to clothe the children and bring them to the boarding schools. So that it was pretty cut and dry, as far as, what options that they had. And not only that, it's, let's see, this one is, that the McLeod family has, okay, so it looks like Grandpa Philip went and sought out help, asking for help clothing the kids and stuff. And here's a note from the Michigan Children's Aid Society. Says, you will note from the enclosed information that the McLeod family has come to our attention through the American Legion as their child welfare chairman of St. Agnes referral is referred them, really. I suppose you are willing to pay for these children if we take them into care. So really, it's like, okay, well, we'll pay for the kids and their well-being as long as we take them into care. And then the big trouble, of course, is finding Catholic boarding school or boarding homes. So it's just disturbing. But I don't know if you want to
Remind me again, is this this is Philip's side too, right? So Becky's saying that Grandpa's sisters helped take care of the kids. Yeah, before they were sent to the boarding school, they did help take care of them. And even while they're in the boarding school, right, they tried to take care of them, but that was one thing that they did is they tried to separate them.
Yeah.
They didn't really let you hang out with your family and show affection to each other.
Yeah.
If they saw that, they'd separate you.
Yeah.
Some of the records said Aunt Luella, and you remember hearing that name, Becky. Aunt Luella and Margaret helped watch the kids too when they were younger. They always had family stepping in, but when they had to. But before the schooling, it was Grandpa that was seeking help. So he got on his feet.
And here's something too. It says that V, who is the social worker, talked to Mr. Porter. I don't know who Mr. Porter is, who felt strongly that the children should be removed from the home. He said he believed plans were being made to have some of the boys taken to Harbor Springs to the Indian school there. The other children he felt should not be left in the drinking environment. He said that male no doubt would try to evade his responsibility, but was a veteran of World War and was entitled to about $1,200 bonus. So a lot of it did come down to money too. But from what we gather, really, it's just the family seeking, it would be like today's day and age, right? If we can't afford to live and we've got children, we're going to go to social services and say, hey, can you help with this? Either provide, means to get a better job or, whatever, right? We don't expect to have our children taken from us in that regard. So that is really how they handled it.
And the only one of the kids that didn't go to the boarding school on your dad's side is Uncle Bernard. So the other ones were taken away, and then Bernard was too young to go. And so what does it say? Mary Captain, right? Their grandmother was able to take care of Bernard. So he was the only one that didn't go to the boarding schools, but everybody else did. So
yeah. In here too, it also says that Grandpa Philip did fight for the kids. Did go back to the school and say, hey, listen, I want my kids home. I don't want them in this damn school. I want my kids home. So ultimately he ended up getting the kids home. But not all families were successful like that. Like Grandma's side of the family, Joseph's side of the family, Grandpa Gilbert, right? Yeah, Gilbert Joseph. He was pissed. He was seriously pissed that how the kids were treated in the school. And he said, hey, listen, I pay, I think it was like 5 cents for school supplies for each child. I don't have a whole lot of money, but I'm spending 5 cents for each child to have their school supplies. And when they go to school, they're getting tormented by the other kids. They can't drink out of the same water fountain as the white children. because then they get teased, and then the white children won't drink out of that bubbler or, anymore, or use their bathroom. So they were segregated that way. But it blows my mind. And
Or forced to drink dirty water was one of the other complaints too.
right,
And it seemed like, and we've heard other stories too, where if the kids go home and they share that information with their families of what's happening to them when they come back to that school, which is inevitable, then they're really, really in trouble and got beat for it. So they kind of learned to just keep everything to themselves, because how else are you going to cope being there?
Yeah, when they were at the Chicago Archives getting information on the families, they managed to get copies of the letters that my grandfather and grandmother, before she passed away, about the kids at the boarding schools. And they had my grandmother end up making 15 ash baskets in order to provide the kids with shoes to wear while they were in school for the winter.
yeah.
And they had a social worker that came to the house, and she said, I do have the baskets ready. But she used to do that all by hand. So,
Yeah, and so if you think about it, I mean, they were paying, if it only costs 5 cents, right, to give your children the school supplies that they need to go to school, and I think that was one notebook, or one pad of paper. I'm not sure how that looked back then, and then some pencils. If that's just 5 cents, right, and Grandma was making baskets, and the white women were selling them for 75 cents a basket. That was way more. They were like making money off, and
she demanded that some be smaller with covers, some larger with color.
and then specific colors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specific colors, and then a box size basket. And so my grandmother used to go out and pound the black ash trees, just like the traditional way that they were taught, and use the berries and stuff to dye the wood as it was drying, or soaking it to absorb the color.
What really blows my mind is that they're taking the kids went to school, right? They took our family,
Yeah.
brought them to school to take away the culture, but yet
Yeah.
wanted us to do our thing, and then sold our things.
Yeah.
Baskets, yeah. All just so the kids could have clothes and shoes.
Yeah,
Like they would send them a box, and so then the family would go to the post office and say, oh, they sent me a box, right? Well, now they have to pay in order to get that box. And they'd reach out to the social worker, be like, well, we can't pick up the box, we don't have the money. And that's what led to, well, if you just make me so many baskets, right, I'll give you some money so that you can get the clothes for your kids. And it's just, if you
Yeah.
think about how long it takes to pound an ash tree and separate it all and dye all the colors and then put it all together, like that's a lot of time and a lot of work to be able to do that just so their kids could have clothes. I mean, it was just terrible circumstances for them.
yeah. So this record, for the Joseph, or for the McLeod family, this one was 17 pages long. We have records on families that are hundreds of pages long. And so to read some of that, and how like police departments were involved when the kids were running away from school, that is some crazy stuff. So definitely reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to provide you guys with any records that we have, and that we found. So it's just, you'll have to be ready to read them. They're pretty, we cried a lot.
Yeah.
We definitely cried a lot, but
And that's why we've been slow in sharing all of this too. We don't want to just hand all the records off and be like, okay, here you go, good luck, without explaining how it was during those times and the context of the government policies that led to the boarding schools and how the kids were treated. Like if you don't have that understanding and that knowledge of how that all came to be, reading those records are going to be like, what the heck? Because it's terrible and it's awful to read. Some of the records that we have too are like copies of handwritten letters from our family members writing to the school, asking, I heard my daughter's sick, how is she doing? I think it was when Aunt Lo had pneumonia, right? And they were like, she was at the hospital, but they didn't have any way to get there. And so can you tell me how she's doing? And
can she come home?
Yeah.
Her brothers and sisters miss her.
Yeah.
And it was sad.
so it's a lot. Well, we're going to keep going because I think the more we learn about how it was and why we lost the culture and the language, we'll understand just how important it is to keep that alive. Because if we don't do this work, it's going to end in our family. I mean,
Right.
Grandma had 11 kids, and Grandpa's side had a lot of kids too. And we have a lot of cousins and a lot of aunties and uncles, and not many of them are connected to the culture, and it's nobody's fault. It was the boarding schools that led to our families disconnect, and our mission is to try to get that connection, however it may look for people, you know, whether it's learning the language or
Learning how to smudge.
yeah, going to ceremony, getting your traditional name, like all of those things, whatever that looks like for you. Like it's never too late. We do this in hopes that our grandkids and future generations will grow up knowing who they are and that they're gifts. We all have a purpose for being here.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line.
right.
So then I think another thing we wanted to share in these lives too, and you guys can comment after we close. We're going to close this live soon. I know it's almost 45 minutes here. But we want to know, like, what else do you want to know? Like, what are some things that we can help on your journey? I have a lot of books that I've been reading, and Penny as well. Do we want to share like the 7 teachings? The 7 teachings are respect, humility, truth, love, honesty, bravery, wisdom. Like, do we want to share like what that traditionally meant and how those values can help our children grow and succeed in this world, right? And Braiding Sweetgrass is another amazing book. You can start at any chapter, and it's so like healing just to read those stories and understand the traditional ways. So there's a lot we can do with this. We really just want to get family feedback about what do you need? How can we help you on your journey to find who you are and, you know, your goal and your purpose in life, like all of these things. We want to help in any way that we can. So that's really what we're here for.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else you can think of?
No,
Okay.
no, not really.
So I will end with a quote like we did last time. I'm going to show the image first because I think it's so cool. Growth is not always obvious. So here you see that tiny flower growing at the surface. And people on this, you know, see surface level things and they're like, oh, they're not growing. They're still small, right? But look underneath. So I'm not going to really say or explain this too much. Just reflect on this and think about it throughout your week till we meet up again. Miigwech for joining us all tonight. We appreciate you all.
Yeah, miigwech.